How y'all doing? For this book review, I'm going to go over a book from Edgar Rice Burroughs, one of his unusual ones, should I say, The Lost Continent. And this is originally titled Beyond 30. I'll explain to that in a minute. Interesting history about this one. This was considered at one time his hardest to find novels. Like, this was so hard to find. It was like dedicated Edgar Rice Burroughs fans had copies of this at one point before this one was published in the 50s and 60s. It was originally published in 1915. Well, at least according to Wikipedia, it was written in 1915 and published in 1916, in a fanzine. It didn't gain a book form until the 1950s, and this is a mass market paperback in 1960s. So, most of you if you're familiar with Edgar Rice Burroughs at all, you're probably familiar with his Tarzan and Barsoom series with John Carter. Those are his two most famous ones. And maybe the Pellucidar series and the Land of Time Forgotten, the books that came after that. Of course, he wrote others as well, a lot of standalones and such. This is one of them. Okay, now this is I find this very interesting because it's sort of speculative fiction at the time it was written. I mean, if you think about this, this is in 1915 where he wrote this. This would be just when World War I was happening. And he shows some sentiments at the time. It was a case of World War I was considered the worst war that ever happened to mankind at this point. And so with all that was going on, you get to understand the context of how this book came about. So in the situation, the setting of this is where there was tension between North and South America and the rest of the world, particularly in Europe, with all the stuff that was happening. The North and South America, combined themselves into Pan America as one huge superpower, and isolate themselves from the rest of the world. As you can see in World War I, they were trying to be neutral as well. And so, with speculative fiction, science fiction, you kind of ask, what if? So, that's the fun of such books. So, they isolate themselves from the rest of the world where Pan America cannot go any further than 30 degrees longitudinal meridian to the east and 175 degrees to the west. That's their territory. Everyone, no one is to go beyond that. Leave the rest of the world to their own affairs. They kept this going for 200 years. The story takes place in the 2100s, and our main character is Lieutenant Jefferson Turck. He's a naval officer, and he's doing his patrol, running commanding a ship under, patrolling to the east, and he's got some problems. First of all, the ship alone. This tells you what they thought about vehicles in the future. This is a vessel that can fly, go on water, and submerge. It's both aircraft, a ship, and a submarine all at once. Well, okay, so they're patrolling and in the eastern side, and they got some problems. Things are malfunctioning. It was an old vessel. Newer vessels solved these problems, but they're going through this older one, and it's now at its end, or at least so it seems. So they have to land, and there's also other problems where they can't submerge. There's not much they can do except keep going east. And if they did that, he's almost having a mutiny, but not really, because he has a couple officers that are like, hey, you do this, we have to arrest you. If you go beyond this, you can't go beyond 30 degrees. You have to be arrested, put to trial, maybe even death even. But the captain says, oh, let's do it. Well, what's happening? We've heard stories. Let's do this. So off they go, despite the troubles with some of the officers that he's having. And so as he's traveling east, they go to the Isle of Wight, and as they go there, they find tigers. Yeah, tigers. Near the United Kingdom. And they find and he finds people there, but they're reduced to a barbaric, savage state and everything. Okay, well, let's play along here. So they leave. They go more into the mainland, and of course, Lieutenant Turck and the three of his men were going off on a smaller vessel to try to get some food and supplies for the ship. And then all of a sudden, apparently they got their main ship fixed up, and they leave them, so they're not isolated. Turck probably thinks it's one of his subordinate officers undermining him. So now they're stuck in England to their wits. You know, they have their guns and everything, so they try to hopefully to survive as best they can. Exploring into the mainland, they find out that there's areas that are loaded with lions and even elephants. You know, they're fascinated by it because these are creatures that don't exist in Pan America. So, and after 200 years of isolation, they're considered this is like, wow, this is amazing. This is something we've only heard about. And they meet more of these savages. In fact, the Turck, he finds a woman being who was captured by these other tribesmen. He fights them off and rescues her. Apparently, she's a princess to another local tribe who she's afraid to go back because her father was killed by a man who's trying to usurp power from him. He wants to take her, and by taking her, he becomes the king. And so he tries to help however he can, but he gets captured along with a woman by this man named Buckingham. Yeah. So Buckingham takes him captured. He eventually escapes with the woman, who he later finds out her name's Victory. And so he travels around and he goes into this castle, and he finds out there's more lions there, and he finds a little bit what happened there. Apparently, most of the people left England onto the mainland, and whoever's left now becomes savages. And later in the book, they say that the woman Victory is descended from the English royal family. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, have such coincidences. So, and I don't want to give too much away the story because it's a very short book, and I want to show that premises. And they go, he meets up with, they escape with these other crew members, and they go to the mainland and see what happens there. And I want to stop there with the story because I don't want to spoil it. Okay. As I said, this book was written back in 1915, and while this stuff is completely silly by today's standards, I gotta admit, I had some fun. I enjoyed reading it. It does what a lot of speculative fiction does, and it tells the question of what if. Even if the events are so silly, because, well, what happened? Okay, why is there lions and tigers and elephants traveling around England? Well, they explained that these were all descendants of animals trapped in zoos that escaped. And how did people reduce themselves to a barbaric state? That is, well, that's a common feature in such stories at the time. You would have figured that many people would just live in the ruins or try to use the tools to at least keep a higher level of that. But no, everyone's now barbarian and furs and loincloths and everything like that. At least in the England part. It's a bit different when you get to the mainland. But I still, regardless of that, this is still fun to read. Edgar Rice Burroughs can still give a exciting adventure story. And this is a very, very short book. This is only like 126 pages in this copy that I have. So if you want that good old-fashioned adventure that, that Edgar Rice Burroughs was famous for, give this a shot. I got this at the half-price books for like $3. And this is at the time when, books like these were like 40 cents. But it's in the public domain. You can go to YouTube and find an audiobook, and I found one on YouTube that was like 4 hours, so it won't take much to listen to. And it has everything that's typical of Edgar Rice Burroughs. You have a guy who's a big, strong, confident guy. He meets up with a princess, a beautiful princess, and he go on this series of ventures in a savage land and what have you. Still by today's standards, but fun if you get into the right mindset. So there you go. The Lost Continent, original title Beyond 30 by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Give it a shot. Thank you all for watching. You have a nice day.